Self-control. So you must be thinking, what do you have to do with problems of self-control? Let's take a little survey. How many people here in the last week have procrastinated more than you wish you would? How many people have exercised in the last week less than you wish you would? Have eaten more than you wish you would? Have had more unprotected sex than you wish you would? So I want to talk a little bit about self-control, and self-control is the problem that we have all this desire from ourselves for the long term, but then in the short term we do very different things. And to get us thinking about this, I want to tell you about one of my biggest challenges with self-control. So I was in hospital for a long time, and one of the things I got in hospital was a particular version of hepatitis. I got a bad blood transfusion, and I got a liver disease as a consequence. And from time to time, the liver disease would flare up, and I would get even sicker than I was anyway, and this was very unpleasant. And about 7 years after I was already out of the hospital, after my injury, I had another one of those episodes. I checked myself into hospital, and they told me I had hepatitis C. And the good news was that the FDA was running a clinical trial to figure out whether interferon, a medication that was originally approved for hairy cell leukemia, is going to be successful for treating hepatitis C. So I said, what would happen if I don't join this trial? I said, you have a good chance of dying from liver cirrhosis, and that's not a good thing. So I took the medication. And these injections were kind of the essence of self-control. I had to give myself 3 injections a week for a year and a half. And if I did it for a year and a half, there was a chance that I might not have liver cirrhosis 30 years down the road. But if I took the medication, for sure, I will be sick for about the next 16 hours. Think something like headache, vomiting, shaking, stuff like that. Not really terrible compared to liver cirrhosis, but unpleasant and immediate. And the fact is that when we are facing those decisions between something that is immediate and unpleasant versus something that is good, really good, but in the long-term future, we often over-focus on the present and sacrifice the future. So anyway, this is of course not a new problem. We all face this, as we said. This is the problem of Adam and Eve. You can say, who in their right mind will ever give an apple for eternity in the Garden of Eden? What a crazy trade-offs. But there's a modern version of this. And you can say, who in the right mind will ever do this? How many people here have ever texted while driving? Yeah. I mean, it's an incredible thing, right? And you say, it's not the case that you said to yourself, how much do I enjoy living? How much do I not want to kill other people? How important is this text message right now? And you said, yes, let me do that. No, instead what happened is that the impulse to answer this vibrating phone or to answer the ring overtakes us, and we do lots of bad things as a consequence. So think about it the following way. Imagine I gave you a choice between half a box of chocolate right now or a full box of chocolate in a week. And I took, and this was fantastic Lynch chocolate, and I passed it around, and you could see it and smell it. And you could choose between half a box of chocolate now or a full box of chocolate in a week. How many people under those conditions would delay the choice? Say, I'll wait another week for another half a box of chocolate. We have a few hands, and I'm willing to bet that if we actually had the chocolate passing around, there would be few of those. But most people say, give me the chocolate now. I'll take less chocolate now than more later. Imagine I pushed the choice to the future. And I said, what would you rather have? A half a box of chocolate in a year or a full box of chocolate in a year and a week? Now realize it's the same choice. It's asking whether you would be willing to wait another week for another half a box of chocolate. But in this case, when both choices are in the future, how many people would wait another week for another half a box of chocolate? Everybody, right? Because in the future, we are wonderful people. We will be patient, we will not procrastinate, we will take our medication on time, we will exercise, we will eat. The problem is that we never get to live in that future. We always live in the present, and in the present we're not exactly that wonderful people. So that's the problem with how we treat the present and future. So, going back to my case, I took this medication. The trial was here when I was a student at Duke. When I finished, they told me, good news, I got rid of my liver disease. That was fantastic news. The second news was that I was the only person in this FDA protocol that always took their medication on time. The question is how? Do I have more patience? Do I have more self-control? Do I care more about my future? And the answer is no. But the answer is that I developed a little trick for myself. And my trick is that I love movies. If I had time, I would watch lots and lots of movies. I don't have that much time, and I don't watch that many movies. But on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, which were injection day, on the way to school, I would stop in a video store. I would rent a few videos I wanted to watch. I would carry them in my backpack the whole day, anticipating watching them. I would get home, I would inject myself, and I would pop a movie in. I would get a bucket and a blanket for the side effects, but I took the injection immediately. I didn't wait for the side effects to start. I connected something good with something bad, and this, together with the fact that I don't have a particularly good memory, so I could watch the same movies over and over, sustained me through this long time. Now let's think about this. If we just thought of what is important in life, we would say that livers are really important. Nobody could question that. We would also say that side effects from medication are not that important, relatively speaking. And this difference in importance should have motivated me and every other patient in the protocol to take our medication on time. But the problem is that this is not how we view life. There's also a time domain. And the liver is not affecting us right now. It will be long-term in the future. And because of that, it's vastly discounted. And the injections are now, which become much more focal and central and take more control over our lives. Now, what was my trick? Did my trick get me to start caring about my liver? No, in fact, I substituted with videos. It's kind of crazy because videos are even less important than side effects. We call this reward substitution. And the idea is that there are many things in life, particularly delayed rewards, that we are just not designed to care about. So can we get people to be excited about them? Very unlikely. Think about something like global warming. Can we ever get people to wake up in the morning and feel really excited about solving global warming today? Very, very unlikely, aside from a few schools at Stanford. I mean, just not going to happen. Now, actually, it's worse than that, because if you thought the other way and you said, let me create a problem that people would not care about, that would maximize human apathy, you would come up with global warming. Think about all the reasons. Long term in the future will happen to other people first. We don't see it progressing. We don't see anybody suffering. Anything we can do is a drop in the bucket. Can we really care? No. So what can we do? Can we do something like reward substitution? Can we get people to care or to behave as if they care because they care about something else? And I think that's actually part of the solution, right? If you thought about what makes the Toyota Prius so successful, my non-scientific observation is that when you watch people who drive Toyota Priuses, they smile more than other people. And I think for a good reason. They drive and they say to themselves, look at me, I'm a wonderful human being. And not only that, other people can see me and they can recognize what a wonderful human being I am. Can we do the same thing with our heating systems? Or can we do the same thing with how much insulation we have in our attic, or what kind of temperature we keep our houses on in the winter and the summer? I think that one solution to self-control problem in general is reward substitution, is taking the environment and changing it and getting people to behave in the right way because of the wrong reason. The second solution I want to talk to you about is called self-control contract. And this goes back to the story of Ulysses and the sirens. So if you remember the story, Ulysses knew that when the sirens will come, he will be tempted, so he tied himself to the mast, asked his sailors to tie himself to the mast, and to put donag in their ears so they would not be tempted either. Now what's this situation? It's not exactly like reward substitution. It's a situation in which we know we will be tempted, and we're doing something to make ourselves not able to be tempted. That's another version of dealing with self-control. Now before we talk about people, let's think about rats and pigeons for a few minutes. So imagine you're a rat or a pigeon, and I teach you for a while that the green button means 1 pellet of food immediately, and a purple button means you have to wait 10 seconds and then you get 10 pellets of food. I teach you this for a long time, green 1, purple 10. You learn this and then I give you both. And I say, what would you rather have? Green or purple? Now realize that for a rat, 10 seconds is like a week for us. Really long time. So what do you think they choose? They choose the green. Not so good. It actually gets a little worse. You start the trial. The purple button appears. They press on it. A couple of seconds pass. The green button appears. If they can only hold off and not press on anything, they'll get 10 pellets of food, but they can't. They press on the green and they get 1 pellet instead of 10. But there's one interesting version. The trial starts, the purple button appears, they press on it, a second passes, a red button appears. And the red button does nothing good. There's no food connected to it, and rats and pigeons don't enjoy pressing buttons particularly. But what this red button does is to turn off the green button. It's the Ulysses contract. It means that the rat and pigeon can do something that they don't like to make sure that they are not tempted in the future to do something bad. What do you think? Will they have enough insight, enough foresight, enough self-control ability to do that? It doesn't seem like it, but they do. Not all the time, but they often do. And I think this is very optimistic on 2 grounds. First of all, if they can do it, maybe we can do it too. And the second thing is that it's all about designing the red buttons. If we are faced with temptation, with no tools to overcome it, we're going to fail, much like rats and pigeons. But if we create something that allows us to bypass temptation, like the Ulysses contract, maybe we have some hope. Maybe we can overcome temptation. So let me show you a couple of mechanisms for this. Clocky was a clock invented by one of the students in the Media Lab. And it's a clock that has 2 big wheels that starts running in slightly different speeds. Now what happens? When you go to sleep at night, in your mind, you're the kind of person who wakes up at 6 o'clock in the morning and go for a run or go to the gym. When the alarm set goes off at 6 o'clock in the morning, you are no longer that person. You're the kind of person that sleeps until 8 and drags yourself to class at the last few moments, or maybe a little later. If you get this clock, what happens? At 6 o'clock in the morning, when the alarm sets off, the clock also starts running in the room. And because it has asynchronous wheels, you never know where you have to find it. You have to get up, you have to crawl under things, search for it. There is no way not to get up if you get this thing. So what you're doing is you're basically forcing your future self, you're forcing the 6 a.m. person to do something that you want them to do. This is an even a more extreme version of this. It's an alarm clock that is connected to your bank account. You see the potential now, right? So it's connected to your bank account and to a charity you hate. Now, think about this. The alarm clock goes off and you really want to snooze. But every second you snooze, money goes to a charity you hate. Now, if it's a charity you like, you can snooze and feel you're doing something good for the world. But if you set it up correctly, it would annoy you so much that you would turn it off very quickly and you will get up. Stick is an interesting website designed by 2 chubby economists that wanted to lose weight. And they created a bet against themselves for a lot of money. And this website actually helps people create contracts against each other. This is a curious website. If you install this software on your laptop or your computer, it would alert people when you watch pornography. It would also alert them if you uninstall the software. So what is the point? The point is that we have lots of Adam and Eve temptation. There's lots of things around us, lots of fast food and Facebook, lots of things are aiming for our attention and time and money and food consumption, everything right now. And because of that, the amount of temptation around us is just incredible. There's an analysis that about 70 years ago, about 10% of the human deaths were caused by bad decision making. Right? How could you die in the past? You could make some mistakes, industrial accidents and so on. Now it's about 50%. Smoking, obesity, car accidents. We're just creating lots of ways for us to fail, lots of temptation, lots of ways for us to fail. Now, with all this temptation, all of these problems, it would really be nice if we could all come up with our own Ulysses contract, if we could all come with our red buttons, with our solutions to overcome this problem. Turns out it's very hard to come up with all these things ourselves. The good news is there is technology around. There's hardware, there's software, there's all kinds of ways to think. If people have, as a fundamental problem, the problem of self-control, what can we do to help? What kind of hardware we can build to help? What kind of software we could build to help? And I think that actually is a big key to success and to moving forward. I do want to leave you with one story that kind of explains how complex this is. There was a program in Denver called the Denver Drug Program. And the idea was that if you were a heroin addict, you could come to this organization and they would ask you to write a self-incriminating letter about your drug habit. And they would ask you to address it to the person you fear most will find out about your drug addiction. So I would write to my mother and I would say, "Dear Mom, I'm really sorry to tell you, I have a heroin habit. Love, Dan." And this organization will take the letter, they would fold it, they would put an envelope, they would address it to my mother, they would put a stamp on it, and they would hold it in trust. And they would come from time to time and check my blood level. If I ever had residue of heroin, they would mail the letter away. Right? This is the idea that we can do something that is so big and so frightening, and the moment that we want to overcome our temptation, that we could implement something that later would control our behavior. By the way, what do you think happened when people started craving drugs? They came to this organization and said, "I want out." And what did this organization say? "You can be out in 3 weeks, but for the next 3 weeks, we know you're in craving, we'll check your blood level every day." And 3 weeks were enough time for most people to get clean. Now, eventually they had to cancel this organization because of human rights violation. Because if you think about the Ulysses problem, is that if the only way these mechanisms work is that we force people in, or we let them go in without letting them get out, right? Because if you can get out, it doesn't work anymore. It creates a big challenge on what do we think about human freedom. So the two thoughts I want to leave with you is, how do we design the world to help us overcome our temptation, and how do we do it without obstructing too much with our human freedom and rights? And thanks.